Today I'm at the fourth largest mall in the United States, the King of Prussia Mall in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. This place is absolutely huge. It's nearly 2.8 million square feet and has 450 stores. And honestly, it can be a little confusing to navigate if you've never been here before. I had been here once before, but I'm still not that familiar with it like I am with the malls closer to me. This is an upscale mall with a lot of high-end stores, but it also does have some middle-class friendly stores as well. It's also a popular tourist destination in the Philadelphia area. In fact, it's estimated that 20% of visitors here are tourists. At the end of this corridor is where Sears was located from 1983 to 2014. In early 2014, Sears downsized to just the first floor to make room for Dick's to move into the second floor. But then at the end of 2014, Sears closed altogether, and Primark moved into the first floor in 2015. Although it's so large today, King of Prussia Mall does have humble beginnings. It opened on September 18, 1962 as an open-air shopping center, anchored by an Acme supermarket and Corvettes. The Plaza, which is where we are right now, was originally owned by Kravco. In 1981, Kravco opened up a second mall called the Court at King of Prussia, just next to the Plaza. However, even though they were under the same ownership, they were technically considered two different malls, and it wasn't until the mid-90s that they started marketing both as a single entity. And until 2016, they were not physically connected, so you had to go outside to go from one to the other. We'll see the Court in a little bit, but for now, let's take a look at the Plaza. The Plaza originally had an American colonial theme because of its proximity to Valley Forge, and the Plaza rapidly expanded over the years. In 1963, a new 3-story JCPenney was added, along with a Woolworths and about 20 other stores. A 1,400-seat Stanley Warner movie theater was added in May of 1965. Then in August of 1965, John Wanamaker's joined the mall as another anchor store, followed by Gimbel's in 1966. By the 70s, the Plaza was the largest shopping center in the eastern United States at over 1 million square feet, and with more than 100 stores and 27,000 parking spaces. There was a small enclosed section that connected the 3 department stores, but most of the mall was still outdoor, and the Plaza wouldn't be fully enclosed until 1995. Corvettes closed in 1980 when the entire company went out of business. The building was then demolished and replaced with a new Sears and a food court in 1983. And I think the section of the mall that I was in at the beginning of the video, I think a little bit of that was on the site of the old Corvettes. Some of the other businesses that were in the Plaza in the early 80s included Herman's World of Sporting Goods, Kitty City, and 2 arcades. In 1995, the Plaza was connected to the court with an outdoor walkway. Also, parts of the Plaza were demolished and rebuilt, and by then the entire Plaza was indoor. Also, 3 new anchor stores were added to the Plaza. Lord & Taylor in late 1995, followed by Neiman Marcus and Nordstrom in early 1996. The Simon Property Group became majority owners of the mall in 2011 with a 96% share. However, they had been minority owners since 1996. Here's the Nordstrom now. It's one of only 3 in the Philadelphia area, along with Cherry Hill Mall and Christiana Mall. It was also the first one in this area. So far, we've seen a lot of high-end stores, especially in this part of the mall. There were some more typical mall stores at the beginning of the video, but now it seems to be a lot of more upscale places. Some of these stores I've never even heard of. And here's a rare vacancy. You're not going to see too many of those walking around this mall. This was a place called Brewmate. The sign was still up. I think they're one of those companies that make insulated cups that keep your drinks cold or hot, like a Yeti. And apparently this was their first ever physical store. It opened around April of 2023 from what I read, and apparently it didn't last very long. On the right here, where it says Netflix House coming in 2025, that's where Lord & Taylor was located from 1995 to 2021, when they closed all of their brick and mortar stores. And over here, I thought this was Lord & Taylor originally while I was walking the mall, but I'm not sure what this was. And here's Neiman Marcus, which, as mentioned earlier, opened in 1996. This is the only location in the Philadelphia area. I've never been to a Neiman Marcus. I think it's a little too expensive for me. Here's another vacancy, but as you can see, something is lined up to come here soon. And I would think that most of the vacancies at this mall have a lot of interest in them from different retailers. This is a very high-end destination. It seems like some of the stores here, like Canada Goose, only let a certain number of customers in at a time, and I guess that's for theft reasons. If they let too many people in at once, it would be too hard to keep an eye on all of them. So they have a line outside the store. I've seen that at different malls with different stores, and it's usually more upscale places. I think Pandora does that at their stores. This here leads to the court, and we'll see that in a little while, but I just want to finish the plaza before I get to the court. In 2018, King of Prussia Mall had a value of $2.77 billion and a sales per square foot of $773, which made it the 8th most valuable mall in the US. I tried looking up the vacancy rate of the mall, and I couldn't really find anything, but if I had to guess, I would say it's 5% at most. Over there where it says Italy coming in fall 2025, that's where Wanamaker's was located from 1965 to 1995 when it became Hex. Then in 1997, Hex became Strawbridge's. Then in 2006, Strawbridge's became Macy's, which already had a location in the court, so they had two for a little while, but they ended up closing this one in 2007. And then the building was demolished in 2011 to make way for new, smaller stores and a new entrance on the first floor. Now we're heading back in the direction where I came in at the beginning of the video, and after that we'll head downstairs and take a look at the first floor. It seems like the closer you get to that, the more middle-class friendly the mall is. I'm not seeing too many high-end retailers down here. I'm seeing the kind of stores that I see at other malls I go to. That vacant anchor store over there on the right was the original location of Gimbel's from 1966 to 1986. Then it became Stearns in 1986, and JCPenney moved in 1992, relocating from their original location in the middle of the mall, which has since been made into more mall space. JCPenney closed in 2017. I'm not exactly sure where the original JCPenney was, and I couldn't really find much information about it, but I want to guess that it was these stores to the left of where I am. All of these stores made up the JCPenney. If I'm wrong though, please let me know. I have to say the ceiling here is really cool. There's one of those Tesla Cybertrucks up there. I've been seeing those quite a bit lately. Here's the first floor of the old Lord and Taylor. So it looks like the Netflix house is going to be 2 floors. In 2018 and 2019, the Plaza underwent a renovation, which saw new flooring, new handrails, new LED lighting, new seating, and new restrooms added. It's clearly got a modern look to it, but in a good way, I think. A lot of malls kind of look boring after being renovated in recent years. One big example of this is the Franklin Mills Mall, which was also owned by Simon until very recently. That used to be a very exciting looking mall, and after Simon renovated it in 2016, it just completely lost all of its character and looked very bland and boring. Simon has done a much better job taking care of this mall than they did that one, but that's to be expected though. This mall makes them a lot more money than Franklin Mills ever did. Because this mall is so big, some businesses have 2 locations within it. Annie Ann's is one of them. We passed one on the 2nd floor toward the beginning of the video. That ahead of us was the first floor to the JCPenney. And now they have this VR thing in front of it. I don't think you can actually go in though. I think all those are just in front of the store. I hate these toys that keep squeaking. I've seen vendors selling those at different malls and they are always so annoying. Now we're approaching the old Sears again, and once again you can see that the stores are getting more and more middle-class friendly. I guess that kind of makes sense, considering that Sears was probably the least high-end of their anchors. This kind of reminds me of the Cherry Hill Mall, where it's more middle-class friendly near the JCPenney, and then more upscale near the Macy's and Nordstrom. One thing I didn't see a whole lot of while I was walking around the mall was directories. Simon typically uses the electronic interactive ones, and it looks like this one here was not working. Here's the Primark, which opened in the first floor of the old Sears in 2015. And here's another Annie Ann's. What is that, 3 of them now? Here's a Mrs. Fields. I didn't even realize they were still in business. I used to see those at malls all the time, but I haven't seen one in forever. Now we're entering one of the mall's 2 food courts. They do have 2. And I like this food court. It's got a decent selection here. Chick-fil-A was closed because it was Sunday. They've got a Stir Fry 88. That's the one place that's left at the Neshaminy Mall food court. I didn't realize they had multiple locations. There's a few different national chains in here. Chick-fil-A, Popeyes. Like I mentioned earlier, this food court opened in 1983, and it was part of the new section of the mall that was built on top of the old Corvettes, which was demolished. They've even got a Five Guys, which I don't think I've ever seen in a mall food court before. They don't normally have drive-thrus though, so I guess they're not worried about that. They've still got a Subway. I feel like I don't see that in malls much anymore. Chipotle. I don't think I've ever seen that in a food court.
Thank you.
So yeah, they don't have a single vacant restaurant in there. And like I said, they have another food court too, which we'll see in a little while. And in addition to that, they've got eateries scattered all around the mall. So you're not going to have trouble finding something that you like here if you're hungry. You see that H&M over there on the left? To the right of that, in part of what will be Italy in the coming months, used to be a Rite Aid. and that closed in 2023. It used to be pretty common to see drugstores in malls like CVS or Rite Aid, but I feel like most of those disappeared around the late 2000s at the latest. It's interesting that the Rite Aid here lasted as long as it did. It also had a pharmacy, which is kind of unusual because mall drugstores usually didn't have pharmacies. Now that's interesting, they've got a Porsche dealership inside the mall. I don't think I've ever seen a car dealership in a mall before. Also, I don't think I've seen a Porsche dealership ever. But I guess the kind of people who can afford a Porsche are the kind of people who can afford to shop at this place. Not sure why this person had a dog with them, but I don't know, maybe there's a good reason for it. Now we're just about wrapped up with the Plaza. Now we're entering the connector, which connects the plaza to the court. Construction on this began in 2014 and it opened in 2016. And for the first time, shoppers could go between the plaza and the court without going outside. Now we're about to enter the mall's other food court. They call it Savor King of Prussia, and this was also added along with the new connector in 2016. We've got a Shake Shack here, which is interesting because there's also a Shake Shack out in the parking lot. But I guess they do well enough that they can have two locations on the same property, just like some other places here. This food court doesn't have as many restaurants as the food court we went through earlier. It is pretty big though, there's a lot of seating. California tortilla. I don't think I've ever seen one of those before. There's really not much down here except for one of the mall entrances and a restaurant. I decided to come down anyway. They've got a revolving door, that's cool. Here's the Macy's, which is part of the court. We're still in the connector, I think. Though I believe that entrance to the Macy's was only added in 2016. Some of the department stores here do have entrances from multiple sides. Wow, and there's yet another Annie Ann's over there. That must be number 4. Alright, now here's the court. We finally made it. As I mentioned earlier, the court was built in 1981, and unlike the plaza, it's always been fully enclosed. When the court opened in 81, it had 3 anchor stores: Bloomingdale's, which you can see straight ahead, Bamberger's, and Abraham and Straus. Here is the Macy's, which was originally Bamberger's from 1981 to 1986. And like I mentioned earlier, Macy's did have a second location here very briefly from 2006 to 2007 in the old Wanamaker's in the plaza. Annie Ann's number 5. Man, I know it's a mall staple, but I can't believe that they do good enough business that they can have 5 locations in one mall, even a mall this size. Apparently this place Heel Quick is still open. They're just not open on Sundays. It's a shoe repair shop. Like I mentioned earlier, the Plaza was renovated in 2018 and 19. I'm not sure when the court was last renovated though. I was looking at some pictures online of the court and it kind of looked the same to me. Even as far back as 2008, the flooring looked the same. The handrails on the second floor looked the same, so I'm not sure when the court was last renovated, but I think it was sometime before 2008. Not that that's a bad thing. It still looks fine to me. This store that sells knockoff Eagles merch seems so out of place in here. Okay, so here's one of those interactive directories. So we're right almost at the eastern end of the court. Those things are pretty cool. I've also used them at the premium outlet centers, which are owned by Simon. They don't seem to have arrived at Oxford Valley Mall yet, though. Now we're about to enter what they call the Pavilion. This was originally Abraham and Straus from when the court opened in 1981 until 1987. Then in 1988, Strawbridge and Clothier moved in. And in 1997, Strawbridge's opened up a second location in the old Wanamaker/Hex in the Plaza. So there were two Strawbridges here for a little while until 1999 when they closed this one in favor of the other one. And after that, this was divided into more mall space. Before I even did any research on this, I could kind of tell that this used to be a anchor store. The Pavilion is really the only part of King of Prussia Mall that I would say even looks remotely like a dead mall. Just because there's really not a whole lot of stores back here, and it's all the way at the end of the mall. This looks nice though. And there's really not much on the third floor except for Ethan Allen, which is a furniture store, by the way, in case you've never heard of it. Looks like there's a vacancy here. This seems to be a pretty big space. I'm not sure what it used to be, though. I would imagine there's probably not too many tenants looking to move in here, up on the third floor of the Pavilion, just because it's so removed from the rest of the mall. I wonder how much of the old Strawbridge and Clothier design was kept intact here. Like, I noticed that clock up there, it says SC on top, which might stand for Strawbridge and Clothier. And I wonder if this entrance here was actually the Strawbridge and Clothier entrance. It's beautiful either way. Okay, now we're almost done the tour. The only thing left to cover is the second floor of the court. That place Modani, I think that's like the fourth furniture store I've seen in here. I had heard of California Pizza Kitchen before I filmed this, but for some reason I always thought it was more of a fast food place. But it looks like it's an actual restaurant. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the fourth largest mall in the United States. The three largest malls are the Mall of America in Minnesota, the American Dream in New Jersey, and the Galleria in Houston, Texas. However, from what I've heard, I believe that the only reason American Dream and Mall of America are bigger than this one is because of their theme parks that they have inside of them. If you're only looking at actual retail, I think King of Prussia beats both of them out. I could be wrong about that, but that's my understanding. So what is it that makes King of Prussia Mall so successful? I think it's a few different factors. First of all, its location. It's located right by four major highways: the Schuylkill Expressway, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, Route 202, and Route 422. The fact that these highways all meet right about here has led to massive growth in the area since 1960. Before that, this area wasn't really known for much other than being where George Washington camped during the winter of 1777 to 78 at Valley Forge right around here. The rapid population growth of the King of Prussia area over the last 65 years has led to a lot of development, not just the mall, but also other shopping centers, business parks, and housing. King of Prussia is also a major job center. It's the largest job center in the Philadelphia suburbs, with over 60,000 employees, which is 3 times the population. So there's a lot of people who commute here on a daily basis for work, and that brings a lot of shoppers to the area. But not only that, this is the kind of mall that people will actually drive an hour or more to get to, just because it's so big and has so much to offer. As you've seen, clearly, there's a lot of upscale stores here, and a lot of those stores are pretty hard to come by. For example, the Neiman Marcus here is the only one in the Philly region, like I mentioned earlier. The Bloomingdale's is one of 2, and the Nordstrom is one of 3. And those are just the anchor stores. There's plenty of smaller inline stores that are upscale and rare too. And in addition to stores, there are countless dining options here. And I think this is just a nice place to spend time, even if you're not actively shopping. It's an aesthetically pleasing mall, I think, and it's just a nice place to walk around for a while, take in the atmosphere. I'd probably come here a lot more often if I didn't have to pay to take the turnpike, honestly. And then another thing is, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's a bit of a tourist attraction. 20% of the shoppers who come here are tourists. Apparently, one of the reasons for that is that a lot of hotels in this area give out gift cards for the mall. And I guess just because it's so big, a lot of people are interested in seeing it. Like, a lot of people I know would like to see the Mall of America in Minnesota. I guess it's kind of a similar situation with this one. I do appreciate the plants, even though they're nothing spectacular. It's always nice to see plants in a mall. Alright, well there you have it. That's the King of Prussia Mall in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.